remember the rest of it. Oh, I know that that's what they're trying to say, John, and that's fine. But I'm just saying, like, Lala, you know what to do.
Hello?
Hi, are you there?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Did you vote for Trump?
Yeah. I think he's pretty good on immigration.
Cool. And how old are you?
24.
Just for great. And what was your primary reason for voting for Trump?
Immigration.
Immigration?
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to go into some details there?
Yeah, I think, like, right now, I don't think it's perfect, but, I think there needs to be more deportations that happen. But I think overall, I mean, it's the most, anti-immigrant president we have, and I think it's a good thing.
So why are you anti-immigration?
Well, I should say anti-illegal immigration specifically, but I would support just lowering immigration down in general, just so we can stabilize the birth rates instead of just replacing our working population with immigrants, which is not a long-term solution to that issue.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. Okay, so you talked about the birth rate. So I'm just curious, how long after a child is born is it before they can start working?
It's going to depend on the state, obviously, but usually 16 to 18.
Okay, so let's just settle on 16 years. So we need to focus on increasing our birth rate, right?
But yeah,
Okay, focus on increasing our birth rate, but not just supplement our current workers, right, with immigrants, right? Just making sure.
yeah. Because ultimately, these
So how
immigrants.
does popping out?
Let me finish the point. Because a lot of these immigrants who come in, they adapt to American ways, and what happens is their birth rate's also lower too. So that's not a solution. We already see this. I mean, Pat Buchanan talked about it back in his book, Death of the West.
I'm sure you've been on TikTok live enough to know that you can't say DEATH, say unalive.
Oh,
Even if you're talking about something like there's a movie that's called A Time to Unalive, but it's a KILL word instead, and I will still say A Time to Unalive because it's TikTok and their terms of service are weird. So, okay. So, what's your solution to increasing the birth rate? Let's try that.
Well, I think firstly, if you have mass deportations, what's going to happen is that housing costs are going to lower, and plus working wages are going to increase because there's less workers. So, and a lot of these workers who are immigrants, guess what? They work for less money than Americans do. So you already have like economic incentives to deport people.
I Can you show me historical data that shows that historical data? So I want proof and evidence that migrants,
I don't need historical
immigrants
data.
drive
That's
up
a
the cost
priority
of
argument.
housing?
That's just a priority argument. If you have more people in a location, sure, where you have a bunch of different housing and you have a bunch of people in there,
No,
housing is going
I
to go
want
up because
data.
there's going to be less
So I
housing.
don't. Hey, guest. I
It's
don't
an
think
a
you
priority
understand.
argument.
I like data.
No,
No,
you
I
just
don't
don't like
care
the
what kind of
argument.
argument. I like
You don't
data.
like the
So I
argument.
want you to show me data. No, because the thing is, there is no data
No,
that exists. There is no data that exists
that's not an
that says
argument.
that there is no. Hey, every time you interrupt my sentence, I will start it over from the beginning. So you delay me getting my point across. And if you continue to do it, I will mute you. And I don't like to mute on my live. And my moderator just did that. But what you're not understanding is you have to prove data that says that there is a direct correlation, causation to immigration and how the cost of housing. So that's the only thing that can back you up is showing the direct correlation and causation.
This is
And
literally
you are
basic
not.
supply and demand. Like, how do you not get
No.
this? How do you not get this? If there's more people who demand more houses, you're going to need less housing, meaning the only available houses are going to go up in cost. There's less
Okay.
people to buy
Yeah,
houses.
that's why. That's why. No, that's not always the case. Okay.
How is
So
that
that's
always
why I
supply
can
and
drive.
demand?
I can drive down my street, and there are 3, 4 rent signs on one street alone, and it's not a very long street. It's an extremely short street. I can drive down one of the main roads, and there's at least 15. When I moved and I lived out, when I was living in North Carolina, I lived right outside of Charlotte. The number of houses that were available for rent, the number of houses that were available for purchasing on the market was an extraordinary amount. We are not short on housing. We have housing in places where people don't want to live. There's a difference. There's
Okay,
also
why
the
do
fact.
people
There's
not live
also
there?
the fact. There's also the fact that tariffs on wood is adversely affecting the construction industry and the price of housing. You want to know how I know? Because I worked in the construction industry on the finance side. In
This
fact.
is not related. We're not talking about tariffs right now.
Oh no, I'm.
Right now, we're talking about immigration.
Oh my God. And I'm telling you exactly what drives up the cost of housing. That is not unrelated.
Yes,
I am not
there's 10
switching it
million
over to
different
tariffs.
factors.
I
There's
am
10
not
million
switching
different
over it to
factors
tariff.
what
I'm
can
not switching
rise
over to
housing
tariffs.
costs.
I am not switching
You are
over
switching
to
over
tariffs.
though.
I
You
am
are.
not
You're
switching.
trying to change the argument.
Hey, guest, I know I gave you a warning that every time you interrupt me, I start my sentence over, and that if you continue to interrupt me while I'm trying to get my point across, I will mute you, which I just did.
So you just gish gallop.
Okay.
This is just a
So
filibuster
when I
stream.
asked you, this isn't a filibuster. You don't even know
Yeah,
what that
you are
is. I
filibustering
asked
right now.
you.
You're making 5 different points.
No, I'm not. When I asked for a direct correlation and causation, I provided you an example of a correlation causation. Now you would have to provide me factual data or evidence that shows the direct correlation causation of immigrants driving up the cost of housing. Go.
I don't have to as a priori argument.
You
It's
don't
basic
have
economics.
to. So you don't have anything. Correct? You have no sources
I
to
don't
back up
need
your
a
claim. You just have
source on
thoughts
this.
and
This is
feelings.
basic
You just have
economics.
thoughts
This
and
is
feelings. You
basic
just have.
economics. Clearly, you have no understanding.
Where
of
is that
basic
in
economics.
where is that in economics 101
Literally,
then? What
economics
chapter?
101,
What chapter?
supply and
What
demand.
chapter?
Supply
What
and
chapter?
demand.
What
Go,
chapter?
supply
What
and
chapter?
demand.
What
When
chapter?
there is less supply,
No.
there's more demand, which means
No.
prices raise.
There is
I'm glad
plenty.
you're
There is
denying
plenty of
basic
supply. There is
and demand.
plenty of supply.
Congratulations.
There
You're
is.
cherry picking data from your own personal experience, so that's already a logical fallacy. for me to
Okay,
do.
well,
So
you know what? You are
congratulations.
you're obviously having this whole conversation
it's
with yourself.
clearly- no,
You're
because you
you're
keep
obviously
interrupting me
having
every
this
5
whole
seconds. It's
conversation
okay,
with
calm down.
yourself.
Shh,
You're
calm down, woman. Shh, calm down.
Oh, okay. So here's what we're not gonna do, Pookie Pie. We're not gonna be a misogynist little.
someone's mad.
Hey, guys, hey. I'm gonna handle his mic. It's
Someone's
cool.
mad.
It's cool. It's cool. I got his mic. We're not gonna deal with a little misogynist little
Oh.
butthead on his live.
You have no arguments.
see, you want to say that
You have
I'm not
no
calm. I'm
arguments.
calm. I'm actually
It's
quite
okay.
calm. I'm actually quite happy. I know you saw somebody walk behind me in
No,
my
I don't
background. If
think-
you're actually looking at your phone,
think you
like
are.
I'm quite happy in my life. And just because you're in your little fifis, because you
Oh,
have no
someone's
statistical
sad.
data to prove your point,
Someone's
and the only thing
sad.
you can say is economics
Someone's
101,
mad.
supply and demand, supply and demand, supply
Yes,
and
it's
demand,
supply and
supply and
demand.
demand, supply and demand, like a little broken record. That's your problem, not mine. Like, I don't understand why you can't have another point where I can actually give you at least 5 other correlation causations that prove what actually drives up the cost of housing and not just immigrants
I
with
don't
your
deny-
YT replacement theory that you're trying to push out.
Firstly, it's not a conspiracy theory.
Oh,
Firstly, it's
you
not a
you
conspiracy
started down the YT replacement theory, right? You
Our birth rate's not
started
collapsing.
down. You
birth rate's not
started down
collapsing.
it.
Our birth rate's not collapsing, yes or no? Just answer the question.
No one heard a question.
Yeah, you keep muting me.
Yeah, and I told you I was going to continue to mute you.
Yeah, because you're mad.
I'm not mad. This is actually
You're
quite
pretty
fun.
mad.
This is actually quite
You
fun.
can keep trying to cope at me all you want.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's always bad.
See, the problem is you actually don't know the words, or you don't understand the words that you are attempting to use
I
in a
think I do,
sentence,
actually.
and it's actually kind of
I think
quite
I do,
funny.
actually.
You still don't
You
even
have no
understand
actual
what
argument.
correlation causation is. You have nothing to prove that
I
migrants
understand
actually
those
drive
things.
up the cost of housing. You have
That's
nothing to
pretty basic
disprove.
economics.
You have nothing to disprove that there are houses being built at an extraordinary level, and they have been for the last 3
bet you're just making
years.
this up.
No, I'm not, because I actually worked in the construction industry and you
Okay,
could
cool.
see it.
Cherry-picking-
And
cherry-picking
so,
personal data.
la la la.
I mean, you're just cherry picking your personal experience.
Cool. No, I was actually just
Exactly
waiting
my
for you to
point.
unmute so I could mute you again.
Someone's
No. You're actually
Someone's
really
bad.
boring guest. I gotta be honest. No, this is actually amusing. This is the most fun that I'm going to be having with you during this conversation because you've already proven that you're a misogynist.
Okay.
And
so-
that's probably the real reason why you didn't vote for Kamala Harris and that you voted for a 34 count felon and an adjudicated rapist. Sorry, adjudicated sexual assaulter. Same difference. Neither of them are good.
Never convicted of it, though.
I did say found civilly liable. I was quite adjudicated, which is the same thing. I was quite clear. Hi, Michael. How are you?
Oh, someone's still mad, though.
Aw, can I get some snowflakes and baby bottles in the chat for Gail? Can I get some snowflakes and baby bottles in the chat for Gail?
I'm
I
gonna
think
get up
if you
here
guys
if you
are a
pick me.
subscriber, can you please drop the cry
you don't
harder
have an
emote?
actual argument.
Can you please drop the cry harder emote?
Man, you're
You're the
retarded.
one that doesn't have an actual argue. Oh, and now you use a slur. And now you use a slur. See, this is what they do. When they purposely use a slur in the middle of their argument where they don't have a leg to stand on, because guess what they can do? They know
Oh,
immediately that
beautiful.
gets them
That's
dropped.
beautiful.
So
That's
congratulations. Hi, Michael.
Beautiful.
How are you?